Welcome into Celtics Tube, episode number 2. I'm Jackson Agello with Dennis Riley. We got a second week here after a kind of disappointing trade deadline. It kind of came and went. I felt like, you know, the little meme with the stick man who has like the little stick reaching out and says, come on,
Yep.
do something.
That is a perfect.
That's kind of how I felt like that day went.
I agree.
Just kind of inched along, creeped along. You're waiting for that Woj bomb that seemed to come for other teams.
Yep.
With the Rockets having a fire sale once again. But
exactly.
just didn't quite come for the one that like makes your heart swell for the Celtics. A couple of the ones out there that you were really hoping for, like Aaron Gordon.
Yep. Our premonition didn't come true.
We were cautiously optimistic, I would say.
We were.
And,
that's accurate.
That was foully placed because now he goes to the Nuggets and instantly boosts them and gives them the Jeremy Grant piece they were missing.
Exactly. He's going to fit perfectly there. That was probably the one team other than the Celtics that I think you would mesh and do the best. And we've seen it so far. And I think right now, as we're recording, they are destroying the Sixers. So
we start with our big three. And the first member of our big three this week is Evan Fournier. He didn't show up big in his first performance. He showed up almost non-existently. Like, I think it's actually really challenging in your debut to outshine one of the dumbest plays of the entire season. Like the headline for the Celtics game, if Evan Fournier didn't go over 10, including over 5 from 3, which, mind you, he's the first player since they put in the 3-point line to do that, which is go over.
Pretty tough feat.
Debut for the Celtics while playing more than 30 minutes and taking more than 10 shots. Like, the other people have done it where, you know, they didn't took like one shot. But when you have that big of an opportunity to lay that big of an egg, it outshined Marcus Smart, who had one of the dumbest plays I've seen of the season.
Yep. Shacked in a fool moment. Probably one of the biggest of the decade, honestly.
The best part was he didn't totally realize what he did right after. You saw the wheels turn of like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
And he's still trying to argue it with Kemba.
The team just gave them the ball because – so what happened, obviously, in case you didn't see it, is that there was a jump ball with 0.3 seconds left on the shot clock for the New Orleans Pelicans. And the Pelicans were content just to let the Celtics have the ball because what were they going to do with 0.3 seconds left on the shot clock? They just take the jump ball. Well, Marcus Smart looks up, sees the clock right before with that time frame left, grabs the ball, and just heaves it from half court because he thinks he has to. He didn't. The Celtics would have just had the ball. Somehow, that moment was outshined by Evan Fournier. The question is, how concerned should you be as a Celtics fan that in his debut, that's what you got?
I mean, it's obviously not what you want to see. You trade for this guy, he's averaging 19.1 points.
Career high.
Game coming in, which will be super nice off the bench if he can keep that up, other than this game. But, I mean, you want to see him come in and be like an instant guy to go to off your bench. And we didn't see that, obviously. Like you said, he went 0 for 10. I knew he might not make his first few shots. I know the first one was shaky. I think it was like a bank for 3. But we expected him to do better down the stretch. But I'm honestly not too concerned. I think he was just getting the jitters out. I mean, he's coming to a new team, going from Florida to Connecticut. Connecticut. Massachusetts, that's a big difference. And also he had his COVID scare. He had that false positive test immediately when he was reporting to the team. So
you got your concernometer, Den, right? You got your concernometer. Here's 0, not concerned. Yep. Here's 10, sing the alarm bells. Where are you?
I'm honestly probably still around 2. I'm not too concerned. It's just his first game. He's got the jitters out. It's also the first game the Celtics have had fans all year. So I think that probably played a factor in.
I'm a 0 too.
Yeah, it's pretty low. And we all know what he could do. He's been a solid player for a while. And I believe he also had 2 30-plus point games in the past 2 weeks. So we know the
scoring
there.
For him
we saw it on the defensive end too.
At an all-time high. And the defense was solid again for him, which you would love to have just as a stable constant. Now, it just seems to be a trend lately for the Celtics where they get the stable defensive guy who somehow loses his jump shot on the Celtics. That
I know.
seems to be a bit of a theme going forward in this season. But you know he can shoot the ball. He's a proven shooter, a career 38% three-point shooter. And it's not like he goes up and down in different seasons. He's really steady at that.
Rock solid.
His only season above 40% was his rookie year, but every season's been right at 38, 39, 37, really consistent in that range. So you know that's going to come around. He was averaging a career high 19 points, mind you, coming into this. Last year he had 18 points per game. I mean, he's a consistent player who can get a bucket. In the end, that's a net positive for this team. I don't think after just watching that one game, you can take away and say it's a disaster, doom and gloom. I think that's a nearsighted way to look at things and kind of just an immature reaction. You know, you're going to have that
totally
from
agree.
fans, obviously.
Yep.
Because fans are fans. But I don't think a single player on that team seemed concerned in their post-game comments. You know, sometimes you can feel like comments aren't genuine, but when Brad Stevens called it a blip on the radar and Kemba went over to him and told him not to worry about it, that felt real because they were just like, this isn't a thing. Most of them kind of felt like gave off the vibe of, why are we talking about this? You know, he had a bad game. Exactly. Was it one of the worst debuts I've seen in a while? Potentially since Antoine Jameson debuted for the Cavs? Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but those things can move on. The Cavs had quite a bit of success that year, moving on to the conference finals. So I mean,
true.
Things can work out.
Exactly.
Another thing the Celtics did is they got rid of Daniel Tice, which is big thing number 2.
Yep.
Now, I think this is kind of a good thing because I think this gives Rob more playing time. And in a situation where Evan Fournier is playing to the level we're going to expect him to play going forward, which as a veteran, I think is the safe expectation. Again, I guess knock on wood, but I think that's the safe expectation. I think with Rob down in the middle now with consistent shooting across the floor to space out the floor, I think Tice's purpose as the main center just isn't as existent. I think Rob can do more, can guard more people, and I think that will serve the Celtics better come playoff time, come the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I was sad when I first saw the news. Even Brad Stevens didn't see it coming, for one. Happened in the last few minutes of the trade deadline. So came as a surprise to many, but I also agree. I think it'll be good for Rob's growth to start for the next couple of games. Hopefully, even when Tristan Thompson comes back, I hope to see him still on the starting squad because I believe he took over that duty over his play the past few weeks.
I think that's something people have forgotten in the Tice deal too. I feel like a lot of people no one mentioned Tristan Thompson.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people forgot about him.
I feel like people just didn't remember that he was there, but he is, and he's definitely going to contribute. And I think it was the type of thing of obviously the expiring contract as well.
Yep.
Might as well get something. I know you even question kind of what that something was they got back in the end, but it is still getting something for that expiring contract. And in the end, I think it's a piece that they didn't desperately need. I think the Celtics more as a team need the rebounding and defensive effort that you're going to get from the combination of Tristan Thompson and Rob, as opposed to Tice's ability to space. Not that he's not a solid defender in the post. He had some nice defensive plays even in the last game he played before missing the three-pointer that eventually led to being the last moment of his Celtics career.
Such a sad ending. But you know what? I totally agree. I mean, like the expiring contract to get something back, like I wasn't too happy at first. I mean, we got Mo Wagner. I think he'll be a solid grit guy off the bench. He brings a lot of energy, and I think that's good to have on a team, as well as Luke Cornett, who's been off to a surprisingly hot start as a Celtic. 7'2" guy out of Vanderbilt, massive, not a big rebounder, but he's been kind of draining from three. But even Tice, I was glad to see him have a first good game in Chicago. Even put James Wiseman on a poster, so that's a pretty good start. I gotta say.
Did you just hear like the Sarah McLachlan music from those dog commercials with like the "I will remember you" the whole time?
Yeah. Oh man, those dog commercials get to you.
And I guess so do posters from Daniel Tice on different teams.
Exactly.
It attacks the emotions. So you have to see him in a new place, and come post-trade deadline in the NBA, the annual tradition, you're going to have some buyout targets. That's our big three. Number 3 is what buyout targets could you see the Celtics potentially targeting? Now, they'd have to do a bit of roster maneuvering in
Yep.
order to acquire one of these buyout targets. Obviously, the big dominoes in the buyout market have already sort of fallen with like the major names that move the needle to get on the headlines of SportsCenter or something. But as far as the ones that could really help the Celtics going forward, there are still a couple on the board.
Yep, I totally agree. We missed out on the Drummond sweepstakes. He obviously went to LA.
If we're being frank,
talks.
were the Celtics ever in the Drummond sweepstakes?
Probably not. I mean, I don't think there's any shot he would have come to our team right now, being at 500, other than the Lakers, even though they're struggling with AD and LeBron out.
I mean, Andre Drummond's an LA guy.
He's an LA guy.
I don't
you
even
can totally see that.
Like he dated Sam from iCarly.
Sam
he's an LA guy.
He is an LA guy. That's true. Yeah, I thought maybe his Connecticut roots might get him back, but it didn't happen, and probably would never happen. But yeah, we saw some solid options out there. I mean, one guy who comes to mind is Otto Porter. No, he's not the rebounder like Drummond that we had possibly in mind, but I feel like he's going to be a good 3-and-D guy off the bench. I know he was kind of underwhelming during a stint in Chicago. But I think,
well, we've seen guys rejuvenated in new locations. Just look at Blake Griffin. He hadn't had a dunk in like 2 years, and now he's had 3.
That's true. He's been killing it. Yeah, those Nets are getting everyone with him and Aldridge. But yeah, no, I think Otto Porter might be a solid fit. I think the problem at this point is, like you said, we got to do some roster maneuvering. The most likely piece to go out the door is Luke Cornett, who I just mentioned was off to a hot start. It's probably the most expendable. Might hurt some of the hearts of Celtics fans after he's got off to such a hot start and a fan favorite.
I don't know if you can go fan favorite after one game.
Celtics Reddit was flipping out. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure Celtics Reddit would be quite okay with that replacement.
I totally agree.
I would say the addition of Otto Porter would make the Celtics probably defensively one of the most switchable teams in the NBA.
I agree.
Like their lineup consistently minus Kemba would be able to switch onto virtually any player. I mean, obviously Marcus Smart is the only other guy who lacks tremendous size, but with his, I guess, girth, for lack of a better word, and sturdiness, he can kind of match up with some of the other bigs in a pinch in a switch. Like he's not going to be an absolute liability in the way that, no offense to Kemba, he's got a lot of other skills, would be in that situation. And I think that would really help the Celtics for, what's going to be a physical playoff run, ideally.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And defense is exactly what we need right now, especially on our bench and our depth. We don't have much defense coming off the bench other than Grant Williams in his small stints. But 2 more guys I feel like a lot of Celtics fans, they've heard about in the past several times because it's 2 former players of ours, and one's Kelly Olynyk, who just got traded to the Rockets during the deadline, a potential buyout opportunity there. Obviously a big man who can shoot.
Yeah, I don't see him sticking around in Houston.
No, the Rockets are a mess, and they want all their younger players out there. I totally agree. And the other guy is a longtime Celtic, Avery Bradley. Never really got off in Miami.
And he really hasn't been unlocked in the way he was in Boston with Brad Stevens since leaving.
Exactly. No, we really haven't seen the same Avery Bradley since. He had a short stint with the Pistons.
Admittedly, he hasn't played more than 63 games in a season since leaving Boston.
He is injured a lot.
Definitely has factored into it.
True. Yep. No, I agree. I think if we could get him back, I mean, I feel like he's a low-end buy-in target, I would say, just with his age. And I mean, we know the skill sets there.
Just because his name recognition's higher for Celtics fans doesn't mean his actual value to the team is.
I agree. The personal factor is definitely out there in that one.
Which the same goes for anyone, on Twitter or Reddit calling out for Boogie Cousins.
Exactly.
Like I feel personally terrible for Boogie for what's happened to him in injury-wise over the course of his career, because he went to bet on himself twice.
Yep.
And it wasn't his on-court play that let him down. It was just, frankly, his body that let him down.
Yeah, his body.
A couple really inconvenient injuries that helped avoided him getting contracts, especially during the time frame when the salary cap absolutely ballooned and he would have had an absolute bag delivered. He just missed. I feel bad for him.
I do too.
Tremendous player in ability-wise at his peak, but if I'm a Celtics fan, I'm not fired up to see Boogie Cousins coming to my team. And there's no disrespect to Boogie as a guy. It's just what is he bringing to you right now that's different than what you have in house, or that puts you like no buyout. None of these buyout guys are really going to put the Celtics over the hump.
Yep.
What the Celtics have to do to get over the hump is very much so in-house with their own players taking their own leaps. But it could at least, if done right, climb you up like a rung on the ladder.
Yeah.
Like get closer to getting over that hump. Like you're not going to climb all the way to the top, but maybe you can like inch up a rung, and then maybe that helps the rest of the team come together.
Yep. Slowly but surely. And I totally agree. I think it's all internal right now. We got to figure out our own issues. Start playing the end of games well. I know yesterday, for example, we did climb back 13-0 run at the end of the game, had a shot, but Brandon Ingram tore that out of our hands with his nice step back on Tatum. But yeah, I think everything is pretty much internal at this point, and I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it. We've looked pretty solid the past couple of games.
And part of that internal struggle that leaked out into the media this week gave us our first ever My Phone Trippin' moment of the week, which was a Tristan Thompson report from Hoop Central on Twitter that said essentially that he isn't liked in the Celtics locker room.
Yep.
Isn't popular, players have some issues with him. And Jaylen Brown on his official Twitter handle responded just with a blue cap, which for those older people means that's a lie. That ain't it. Not the truth.
Lie.
Not the truth. Not the truth at all. Not facts at
all. Yeah, when that first came out, I was a little worried because, like, I mean, when something comes out from a pretty reputable source, I mean.
Well, and also, I mean, let's face it, it's kind of like if you're a Celtics fan at this point, you kind of have a toxic ex in a sense, and that can weigh on you. Like when you have that toxic ex, then you start thinking and you start seeing things come out in social media, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, is this Kyrie again? Is the locker room in trouble again? Because guess what? Those tweets that came out that first time, they were true. There was a problem. There was a big problem. And it was a big problem. It absolutely torched the rest of that season. But this time, luckily, it was put to rest. But as soon as you see it, all of a sudden you're like flashbacks, like, oh no, it's happening again. Not again. Oh no.
Yeah, I was worried when it first came out, but yeah, I was glad to see his teammates had his back. I think a lot of the rumors were about him not like being able to grow up. I think he was like, they were saying he was partying all the time.
I saw a lot of things saying it was essentially a Kardashian issue.
Exactly.
Which if you're a player, as soon as you hook up with a Kardashian, that's what's going to come with you.
Yeah, exactly. All over the media.
Somehow doesn't work. It has a different connotation when it's a Jenner as opposed to Kardashian.
It's true.
I don't totally know what's behind that, but somehow there's a slight difference.
No, that's true. It was good to I'm glad it got debunked and Jaylen put the cap tweet out there. I think Tatum posted a story on Instagram as well. And I think actually Kemba did thirdly.
It definitely got proven to be false by the players very quickly. And another thing that got proven false is our second My Phone Trippin' of the week, which is this random kid at a gym coming at the White Mamba, Brian Scalabrine, calling out his game in person, and then getting absolutely taken to school. I saw his video both on Twitter and on TikTok. And let me tell you, the kid was talking mad trash, calling out Brian Scalabrine, and Scal just took him to the hole one-on-one. And it was just a bruising style of basketball too. He just absolutely bullied him in the paint.
Yeah. It was such a crazy video. Yeah, no, I know. The kid, I mean, I thought he would at least put up a little bit of a.
Well, it's funny I'm not sure if you listened to the video with audio, but if you did, about halfway through, whoever the kid was narrating it, it's like And then whatever the kid's name in the video is, he put up a fight, tried to put up a fight, and it shows like Scal like missing a layup or something, very contested layup, but a layup nonetheless. And then I expected maybe the kid to hit like an open jumper or two, as like, oh, he came back for a minute or two, put up a fight. Maybe it was like 3-2 Scal early, and then he pulled away. No, he got skunked 11-0.
Absolute blowout. Absolute
It's like,
blowout.
but in the end, Scal was too much. It's like, yeah, obviously he was too much. You don't need to say he put up a fight. He barely put up a fight.
Exactly.
He put up the fight in the same way if I just stood there and put a hand up and like said, hey, Scal, I bet only if you hit threes the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have taken that risk all day. But yeah, no, I think Scal just absolutely bodied him in the paint. I mean, hate to see that. Scal looked like he could have been still an NBA player with the way that kid looked against him. But they played for each other's shoes. That was the bet they put on it. Scal definitely won tons of pairs of shoes with the way he destroyed that kid. But Mike Gorman asked him during the game.
Shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
You should get that kid's shoes.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe that kid's shoes.
Like 20 ancestors down.
Should just have to give him a pair of shoes.
But yeah, Mike asked him the other day, he was like, did you actually take that kid's shoes? And he was like, no, I didn't. And he deserved it. he
deserved it. But that's, I mean, if you're a guy that's expected, so that's kind of like the nice guy move. You don't need to.
Exactly.
You just embarrass the kid. You don't need to rub it in his face even more.
Exactly.
Like
maybe he'll score one next time.
Yeah, no salt in the wound. for sure, no salt in the wound.
Yeah, no.
As for our final thought of the week, my final thought does rub a bit of salt in the wound from another close loss where consistency was a concern. My final thought, just in general, is consistency for the Celtics team. It's a problem. And I think that the game against the Pelicans was a bit of a microcosm of the season. And I know Jaylen Brown wasn't playing, and obviously acclimating in some of the recent additions to the team will be something you'll see play out going forward. But be that as it may, you still look at this team and you saw seemingly a different team each quarter.
Yep.
Especially, the first and the fourth, solid, good quarters. Fourth, towards the end, a very good quarter. And the second and third kind of faded away. And in part, that comes from the top. And I don't necessarily mean Brad Stevens in this specific instance. In this specific instance, I mean Jason Tatum. As the leader of this team, the leader on offense, I know numbers-wise, great game, 32 points. But guess what? All those points came in the first and fourth quarter, and then the second and third, nowhere to be found.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nowhere to be found. And I know his minutes were a little bit more spread out in those two quarters, but still, when he comes into the game, he's got to, especially on a night when you have it going and a night when Jaylen Brown isn't playing, that's when you need to put the assertive gene on. And I know that 32 points sounds great, and it does. He was fantastic down the stretch of that game. But in the NBA, you can't just flip the switch here and there unless you're maybe, LeBron with a really great team. You can't just go through the motions for a couple quarters and then flip the switch again.
Exactly.
And that's kind of a microcosm of the season for the Celtics so far, where they need to flip the switch and they just don't quite flip it. It's a little too flippant in a given game. You see a little too cavalier in a given game, and then all of a sudden they need to flip that switch and they just don't.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. We talked about this briefly last week too. And Tatum usually doesn't have this problem, but it's the dominant gene. You need that. He needed that yesterday. He needed that to come out full-fledged, especially like you said with Jaylen out. He needed to be that guy at all times when he was on the court. But it's a little lackluster in those two quarters, especially the third quarter. We know that problems have gone on for the past probably year and a half. So that's something that's been a problem for a while that hopefully they can clean up somehow. But yeah, no, hopefully all the play will get back to normal once Jaylen gets back. Like I said, we look pretty good the past couple of days. It's just consistency. Been a problem all year. It's been a problem probably, honestly, for a few years, even when we were a lot better. We just hit these streaks where just nothing hits during games. Nothing hits at all. Nothing we do gets us anywhere. But I'll change it to a little bit of a lighter note on my final thought. And didn't know if we would ever see this guy back on the team or if he's anywhere to be found. But our guy Romeo Langford's coming back. he's officially questionable for the game tomorrow night, which I'm very happy to see. Yeah, he's had injury issues since he came in, even since before he came in college at Indiana. He had his wrist issue that he played through during his entire year there. But we still got him with the 14th pick. I was really happy with that pick. And he's looked good in spurts where he hasn't been injured. He's a really gritty defender.
He's a really good
ball.
offensive talent for sure.
Exactly, and he finishes extremely well around the rim. His shot had a little bit of a hitch, but they worked on that, and it was looking solid before he got put out for an extended period of time again. But yeah, that wrist, man. He had to get surgery the end of last year, and it's been going on and on and on. And then right when he comes back, he gets put into health and safety protocols for another couple of weeks. But it'll be good to have him back. I feel like he'll be a solid spark off the bench. They'll probably ease him in a little bit, but I think he could be a pretty solid contributor off that second squad coming out. And he also can be ball dominant at points, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think in this next week, it'll be interesting to see how that second unit sort of starts to come to shape as the guys come into the fold and you get your first rotation down and then sort of fine tune who's going to be a part of that second rotation to help this team over the course of the rest of the season.
Yep.
In the end, it's going to come down to each week, what are we seeing from that main first rotation, though, in the end.
True.
That second one's going to play a big role, but you need to see a little bit more, or I at least, bare minimum, want to see a bit more of that alpha dog mentality of, historically, Marcus Smart kind of comes out fiery, ready to battle. And I think, in part, he is a bit of the heart and soul of the team.
Yep.
And his struggles have kind of leaked out into the rest of the team a little bit.
Exactly.
And hurt the confidence overall a little bit. I think you need to see him kind of get a little bit of that swagger back, and I think that aggressiveness will come back a little bit, which always helps win basketball games.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think Marcus, we saw last night with like we mentioned earlier, Shaq in a full moment. Pretty much right after that, seemed like his mojo went off. He bricked a 3 right after, and I think the Celtics got down 12 immediately after. I think it was a 4-point game before he threw that out. Could have made a 2 1-point game, and then they hit a 3, making it 7, bricked a 3, and then it just spiraled out of control. So he's just got to start. His shot selection's been a problem for a while, but he's had some good and some bad moments in that area this year. He's just got to bring it back. And we saw him get ejected at the end of last night's game, which also didn't help.
No, that put the game was over when he got ejected, but it was still like, one of those like 1 or 2% hope things. And then that was the nail in the coffin of finito over. So we'll see what this team's able to do over the course of this next week. Got a national TV game. That can always help open some eyeballs. Those are the types of games where like you can kind of start to maneuver around the national perception of a team. And obviously the Celtics, who are currently just now 1 game below 500, want to get back to 500.
I hope so.
We'll see if they're able to over the course of this next week. For Dennis, I'm Jackson. See you then.